Welcome back and thanks so much for staying with us. South Africa is home to many world-class universities and colleges, but studying is an expensive undertaking. You can expect to pay between 10 to 20,000 rand per annum for an undergrad study at most universities. Specialized or professional degrees such as medicine can even cost you more. Eduloan has been a leader in student finance since 1996, and it has financed over 530,000 tertiary students with over 2.2 billion rand in educational loans. To talk more on higher education and finance, we're joined by the Chief Executive Officer of Eduloan, Memela Kambula, and you at home can give us a call on 011-759-6401 or 6402 if you'd like to study further and you need financial assistance. Thanks so much, Totsi, for your time. I think it's particularly exciting that you provide youngsters with the potential and ability to study further, especially those that can't finance their own education. It is difficult, and yet it is a priority of the country to educate youngsters.
It's extremely critical. I mean, I think it's helpful that also government has come on board to assist those that are even more poor. The gap that we feel is for those people that are not poor enough, but also not rich enough to enable access, particularly from banks, but also are not able to enable access from government funding. So those are the people that are at the lower end of the market, whereby they require their children to be able to go to school. But interestingly, in terms of most of our funding, it actually goes towards those people that are studying further, which is actually adults that are improving their lives so that they can improve their children's lives by further education in the public service and also in the private sector.
Yes, because if you look at the lending space generally, I mean, with the rigidity that banks are now applying, especially since the economic depression or downturn, is that it's not easy to access financing, be it for studies or business or generally. I mean, how does Eduloan assist in that regard?
Our focus is only for studying. The bulk of the funding that we do is basically for tertiary education. But there's instances where we've enabled parents, for example, that want to take their children to better high schools, because sometimes you find that even if a child does go to university, if they don't have a good base, they don't succeed. So it does help if we actually enable even at a high school level so that we can give the children a much better chance when they actually go to university. In terms of how we enable the access is obviously the parent needs to be employed, or the person that is taking the loan needs to be employed, because our funding is such that you would get a loan for a fixed term, and the minimum period that we give the loan for would be for 10 months, and the maximum would be for 20 months in terms of making that repayment. And interestingly, some of our loans are actually quite small. Our smallest loan is a loan for 500 rand, because you find that in some instances, somebody may require a loan just to go and register, because they may not know as to whether they can be able to get a bursary or anything else. So we do give also small loans, and still the same principles apply. It would be minimum for 10 months and maximum for 22 months. In terms of the range, our loans range from 500 rands in terms of what we have on the book, and our biggest loan being a loan for 130,000 rand with a parent that has been able to take 4 of his children through to university. And I think it does make him a very proud parent, because then he's given his children a start in life because now they have access to education.
All right, we'll take your calls at home on 011-759-6401 or 6402. We're speaking to Memela Kambula. She's the CEO of Eduloan, talking about the importance of, I suppose, putting money aside for your children's education, because in my experience, it was almost as if your parents were taken by complete surprise that you had finished matric, and it's like, what do we do now? So we need to start early as parents in providing for the children's education.
Yes, and I think the other key thing is not only to look at when you are already at university, you need to think about the backward integration in terms of making sure that you also don't find yourself in the same situation whereby when your children have to go to university, it's only then that you say, what do I do? We need to make sure that we start the savings early. We we inculcate that culture of savings amongst our people, even amongst our young people, because you do find that for us to make sure that we create support in terms of financial literacy and financial education, because in some instances you find that a student may get a bursary, but they don't know how to manage the funds. Even in relation to that, we do have an exciting product where we can give you a card where you know that your book funding is your book funding and your accommodation funding is your accommodation funding, to help you manage the funds that you have, even if it's a bursary and it's not necessarily a loan. So that's another alternative product that we have to enable children to be able to manage their finances.
Do you have problems recovering the loan?
In terms of the loans that we have, again, because we ensure that the loans that we give are for those people that are already employed, it therefore becomes easier for us in terms of getting that funding back. The challenge that we found is in instances where you need to do a debit order loan, where the employer is not willing to help the employee with the payments. You find that our people are over-indebted, and in many instances you really cannot assist. So I believe as a nation we also need to do a lot of work in terms of ensuring that our people understand the basics about finance, to make sure that we don't get over-indebted by retail clothing accounts and not be able to take our children to school and create a better life for them for the future.
But is it prevalent amongst your clients, though, in the sense that they're not able to service the loans, and you might be you're having to sit with accounts that are unresolved?
Actually, in terms of our book is a very, very clean book. Our bad debt exposure is actually only 2%. But we've been we are trying to create alternative mechanisms for other people, and we're finding that it's actually quite difficult because, again, our people are over-indebted, where it's not the employer that actually that pays the loan from the salary. If it's the person that you need to get the money from the bank account, it becomes very difficult because we find that we're just over-indebted.
Yeah. But you also administrators rather for bursaries, for employers that choose to outsource their bursary schemes.
That is an exciting product that we actually have, and again, as I indicated, it helps the person that wants to give bursaries to those that don't have, to give them yet a chance, because we have a card that has got a number of pockets. And in terms of this card, you would have your book funding sitting under books, and you can't buy anything else other than books, because books are actually what will enable you to make sure that you do
and
pass.
It reduces the temptation
it reduces the temptation to use the money for something else.
All right, let's take a caller. Remember in Orange Farm. Hi, Remember. What's your question?
Hello, you're speaking to Remember. My question is, how do I access this Eduloan? Because I'm a matric learner from 2010 and currently in a gap year.
Okay, are you employed?
No.
You're not working? All right, Remember, please stay listening. I think he said he's not working, but how does he access a loan then in that case?
I think it becomes a challenge to give people loans that cannot pay the loan back. So if there is, for example, somebody that is a relative that is willing to pay back the loan for Remember, that would assist. Even better still, if the person is working for an employer that would be willing to pay from a salary deduction, because then it would mean that, Remember, when he then finishes his studies, he can then be able to pay back the relative. But we cannot give a loan where the person is not employed, because it does become a challenge in terms of that debt being serviced.
Yeah. Let's look at the type of courses or degrees or diplomas that you would typically fund, because we also know that there is an upswing of illegitimate or colleges around town, so the fly-by-nights, for instance. Do you investigate that the institution is legitimate and before you fund it?
The bulk of the institutions that we fund to actually its universities, our traditional universities, and as a result, even if you go to a university, you can go to a university and find an Eduloan office where we actually exist, so you can go and get support in terms of our customer service agents being able to explain to you in terms of how you can get access to that funding, because we do exist in the majority of the universities, particularly the main campuses.
All right, Pinda, hello to you. Thanks so much for holding. What's your question?
Yes, ma'am. So, bengicela ukubuza ukuthi lo mama lapha phezulu ukuthi abantu abathola ama loans njengami ngiyasebenza and I'm 20 years old. Ngifisa ukufederisha ama studies ami. So, kufanele ngibe nequality engakanani because already I've got equality.
Okay, unamacala uphinda saying that he's well, he's credit active. I won't say he's necessarily has a tarnished credit record.
I think explain Pinda in a way that you can understand. Let's say, for example, you need to pay university fees of about, let's say, 10,000 rands. You require a loan for 10,000 rands. What you will have to do is to make sure that you are able to service that loan. The critical thing would be, in terms of how we would structure the loan, is that it would be a fixed interest. Currently, with our fixed interest rates would be 10%. So let's say the loan is 10,000 rands, fixed at 10,000 rands. Pinda will then have to pay service fees, and the service fees will be about 38 rands per month. And when you make it for over 10 months, it will be 380 rands. And then there's also another fee which will be for 300 rands. So all in all, Pinda would be able to pay back 1,165 rands if he takes a loan for 10,000 rands over 10 months. But if the loan is longer, then it means Pinda will have to pay less. So the key is for us to make sure that in terms of the National Credit Act, Pinda qualifies, one, but secondly, that Pinda is able to service the debt so that we don't make him further indebted. So we need to make sure that we observe also those regulations.
Yeah, but you know, due diligence does apply. You'll do the credit checks, etc., before you give loans.
Yes, no, definitely we do that. But once you are employed, it does make it a little easier for you to access that loan, particularly if because we can provide support also in terms of being able to advise you what you can actually qualify for. There's nothing that stops Pinda for taking a lesser loan, even if he can be able to take to pay the part of the loan in cash.
All right, Dotsie, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. We're speaking to the CEO of Eduloan, Dotsie Memela Kambula, and you can go to their website. That's eduloan.co.za, eduloan.co.za. Try and get your landline number as well. We'll take a quick ad break. I'll see you then.